idea? Is it a business, or is it just an idea? Where do I start?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that happens all too often in our business. A lot of times we'll have somebody come up with a concept, and many times that concept's neat. It all comes down to, if you build something, is there a customer out there that's willing to buy it, and how much are they willing to pay for it? So from a basic standpoint, my recommendation is, if you're coming up with an idea, I think that it's essential to understand who your customer is. And you know, at University of Toledo, we have a special program here. It's a customer discovery program. It's sponsored by the NSF, and Norm Rapino puts it on. I think we do 3 to 4 a year. Yeah, so if you do have an idea, I would always recommend start with customer. Figure out what you have, what your value proposition is, and who your customer is going to be.
To build off that, I'd like to say a lot of people seem to think everyone is their customer. Everyone is not your customer. If you have a diner, there's only so many people that are going to come to that diner in a geographical area. If you're going to sell a product online, you're still going to have some kind of demographics that you have to figure out. So it's very important to drill down and figure out exactly who that customer is. And like Brian said, what are they going to pay for it? But first, how much did it cost you to make it? If you don't know your costs, then someone like myself can't figure out how much you can make and how many cups of coffee do you have to sell each month to make a profit. That's what I usually ask clients. You know, what is your rent? What are your utilities? What is your labor? How much does that coffee cost you? And then how many cups do you have to sell each month to pay the bills?
So in other words, if I'm starting a restaurant, I can't go out and say, okay, there's $10 billion spent on food in the world. That's not really doing me.
Exactly.
What would be more of a, when you talk about drilling down, I think that's exactly right. What does that mean?
Find something similar to yourself, so you can look at your market here in Toledo, and are there any other restaurants in your area that you can figure out, you know, what is their sales size? Or if you find a community that is similar in size to yours, but in a far enough away, like go up into Michigan and find a little town, you might be able to get an owner to actually give you some real numbers. I had somebody do that with an exercise studio. She was able to go find a community that was the same size, and they were willing to hand over and give her some real numbers that they may not have if they were true competitors.
Phillip, you've been around a lot of ideas. Some of those turned into big businesses, small businesses, maybe some of them no business. But
a lot of no business. Let's be very clear. A lot of no business. What's really cool is that as the resident, I guess, computer guy, for lack of a better way of framing it, I do field a lot of things from friends and colleagues that start with, hey, what do you think about ... And I guess the most frequent answer, or the most consistent response, would be, you know, is this the right time? Is this the right place? Are you filling a void in the market? On top of that, you know, are you the king of the castle, the queen of your domain? Do you understand the ins and outs, the nuances of your business? If you're in medical, do you understand all of the aspects that come from that from a regulatory perspective? I'm working casino games. A lot of regulatory stuff there. And so before really jumping in, making sure that you fully understand soup to nuts exactly what it is that you're committing to, because your time is money. And that's what comes next. Are you willing to kill yourself over this? Because it sucks. There is nothing fun, sexy, or glamorous about starting a business. It's a little exciting at first. That excitement wears off real fast. And the pain of that, of not spending time with your friends and your family, of having to juggle a job, a day-to-day in order to pay the bills, but also bootstrap your business, these are all things that are going to impact you in a very real way. And if you like getting up at 9 or being into work at 9 and being home at 5, I would say don't do it. It's not for you. You need to be prepared to eat crap for a little while.
Yeah, let me jump on something you said and kind of go back again. We talked about bootstrapping. Maybe go back to Brian and talk about bootstrapping. What does that mean, you know, sort of in your world, and how do you think about bootstrapping?
Yeah, so really unique about entrepreneurs is they are extremely optimistic. And that is a great thing, and that could be the worst thing as well. I always talk to my entrepreneurs and I say, listen, I love your optimism, but we also have to be cautious. When we talk about bootstrapping, I mean, that's actually utilizing as much of your own cash as possible to get your business up and running. You really don't have a product or a concept that's ready to go for venture funding. You're not going to be able to borrow money to help develop. So when you're bootstrapping, you're putting in a tremendous amount of time, energy, and even money to move your product to a point where you can start asking others to invest in what you're working on.
Being able to use all your own resources to start is a preference when working with small businesses, because trying to get a business loan or somebody else to invest in you, it takes a lot. Most people who come to me, at least, they don't have a credit score that a bank will lend to. They don't have the down payment that a bank would require. But it's also a huge risk. Regardless of what anyone tells you, if you get somebody else to buy into your business, specifically a financial institution, you're putting everything on the line. Everything you own, your home, your cars, you and your families, whatever you have saved, it's on the line. So anything you can do to start and just ensure that you do have a market and you do have a customer before you start taking on that level of financing is advised. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Phil, anything on that?
Having started a few of these companies, knowing and setting a limit for yourself are very important. I'm pretty fortunate to have had an exit or two, which has provided financial support to be able to do a lot of these things. But I also have a 2.5-year-old son whom I'm hoping wants to go to college, and that's going to have to be paid for. So with that, I draw a line in the sand for where I'm comfortable spending my own funds, and then from there, I'm willing to, in fact, I'm doing it today. So I'll give you a very relative example here. We're bootstrapping whole gaming through Starbucks. We had a contract come up that fit the mold for what we do, and so the next version of Bingo that comes out in the Starbucks app, you can say that was made right here in Toledo, Ohio. We're working on a contract to be able to extend that into next year so that we can continue to pay our guys. So it doesn't matter if any of the VC firms that we're talking to right now to be able to fund our business, I'm covered. Am I necessarily getting paid? No, but you know what I'm not doing? I'm not bleeding, and that's just as important.
Yeah, great point. So what we're saying is it's a little bit of a kind of all hands on deck approach as you start and kind of figure out what you have. So with some of the things you guys have been saying, let's kind of keep going down that track when we talk about sort of managing, bootstrapping that budget and all those things. What are the, I'll say cheap and easy things that somebody can do once they have an idea that doesn't cost them money to sort of extrapolate out, do I have something here? What are those things that you can do?
Yeah, I mean, speaking specifically about Northwest Ohio, I mean, you've got a tremendous amount of resources at your disposal. One being NextTech. We're a Northwest Ohio organization that we help tech startups. We help you go through the customer discovery process. We can even help you with initial funding to get started. If we are all in agreement that your technology, your concept is scalable, meaning we think we can get it to the next stage, we'll also be able to raise additional funds to make you successful.
Yeah. That's great. Anybody else?
At the Small Business Development Center, we're located at the Toledo Chamber, so we're benefited by having 2,400 members that we can reach out to and see how they might be able to help you at no cost. So at least if you have an idea that needs intellectual property, I can bring a few attorneys out and say, this is what you need to do. This is some measures you might be able to navigate and do on your own. And if you can't figure it out, this is what we would charge to help you. Also, the Downtown Public Library has a lot of resources, specifically in their business department, where you can do a lot of the market research yourself and try to figure out where your customer is, what that demographic looks like. They have software that allows you to, if you know the NACE code of your business, to figure out what businesses in that industry are doing here, right here in Toledo.
Since everybody's pitching their wares, you can come talk to me. That was a wind-up question.
It was a wind-up
so
question.
as these two also stated, honestly, the SBA, I required the assistance of the King County Small Business Association in Seattle while I was there to help me better understand what is the proper organization I needed to set up for myself when I started creating companies very early on. Understanding accounting, the SBA has been fantastic. NextTech here. I came here because of Jessica Sattler, who unfortunately is no longer here. She was a real driving force here, and she made me believe that NextTech had the tools and the resources that was going to exponentially grow my business to get it to where I want to be even faster. And through that, I've had the opportunity to work with the rest of the NextTech team. Adam has been outstanding. I cannot say enough about this. If you have an idea, whether it's in tech or otherwise, I know there's consumer products companies that are participating. It costs you nothing to sit down and say, or ask, I have a business, what do I do next?
Yeah, and sort of speaking of it costs nothing to do this, what kind of work can I do sort of for free on my own, whether it's a Google search or anything else, to get myself ready to even come talk to NextTech? I mean, I can't just walk into NextTech with a cocktail napkin and say, I want to build an app that does X, Y, Z.
That's right.
What can I do to sort of suss it out myself to even understand how to tell the story to somebody like a NextTech or SBDC?
That's right. I mean, in today's internet age, we have a tremendous amount of resources at our disposal in terms of if you come up with a concept, and if you were to come to NextTech, I truly want you to understand your market, understand all the competition, understand if there's anything else out there like what you're talking about. See if it's, I mean, you could even search patents online. It's that easy to see if even your concept can be patented or provisionally patented. So my recommendation, do as much online research as possible. Become an expert in whatever your concept entails.
I'd say start with a business plan. You may not find it useful, but it really is, because you're laying your whole plan out there. And you don't have to have it perfect. It doesn't have to be some 30-page document, but it will ask questions that you may not have thought about. And a lot of them are available online, and they have areas for financials where you can try and plug in some of your costs and figure out what that looks like for you, and try to determine if this is a product or something you can even sell at a profit that is worth pursuing.
The business plan is a fantastic one, as well as Google as a means of looking at patents. More importantly, go get a job. Friends of ours, my wife and I, we were married at their winery in 2009, and neither one of them had made wine prior to getting involved in that. They knew what they wanted to do. They were farmers. They had fruit. They knew how to grow fruit, which is great. I like beer. Am I going to walk out tomorrow and go, I think I'm going to start a brewery? I would most likely go get a job in a brewery, cleaning floors, learning everything soup to nuts, which gets back to my initial point of, I have an idea, what's next, right?
And that it's not fun.
Exactly, it's not. It's gonna suck. You have to do the shit work. Sorry. You have to do the grunt work in order to really get ahead, and you have to know every position. You have to be able to play every base, every position, and know exactly how it functions.
And to that point, sorry to cut you off, but I think that many times we see sort of in our world, and I'll kind of go to you, Brian, but after I make this statement, I think it's a lot easier to have an idea that is a realistic business in a space that you've been around, or you know that space. I mean, it's much harder to succeed when a lawyer comes and says, I want to start an app that does, does X, Y, Z, but I have no tech experience, I've never been in that field, I just have an idea for it. It's not an automatic failure, right? But I mean, it's
harder.
It's harder, right? And so maybe if any of you guys have some thoughts on that and what Phil said too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's impossible to come up with a concept that's truly outside of your field, because sometimes, having a lot of times, if you're working in an industry for a long time, let's just take medicine, for instance, you get so caught up in the daily grind of just going through the same motions day after day after day, you really don't start thinking out of the box too much. And sometimes if you're, let's just say, a patient, you might be able to come, you don't work in medicine, but you might come up with an idea just because you're thinking out of the box. You're going through a process at a doctor's office, and you come up with a way to make a process or a product better. So that's not unheard of, but Adam is right. I mean, a lot of times, if you're working in a field, you should always, from an entrepreneurial mind perspective, should always be looking at how to make the processes and products better within the field that you're working in, you're an expert in. I mean, it makes bringing a product like that a lot easier to market.
I want to expand off what Phil said. I have had many clients come in, and an example would be, I had a guy who wanted to start a bakery. He had found a building, he wanted to purchase this $100,000 building in a part of town and put a bakery in it, and he had never worked in a bakery, and he didn't know for certain if this community would support the level of high-end baked goods he wanted to create. So we suggested he go in a bakery and work in it for 6 months. And he learned just how difficult it is to get people to work in the evenings, late hours. I mean, you have to start baking at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning at least to have baked goods ready by 6 a.m. But also that these $3 and $4 pastries he wanted to create were not going to be supported in this community. So after he spent 6 months in a bakery, we got him to start a communal kitchen. He shared a kitchen with somebody else and started making his baked goods and selling them to coffee shops. And then he found out just where his market was. And it wasn't in that community. It was in other side of town. And it wasn't even where he thought it could be. But you really drill down and find out exactly who your customer is and what they're willing to pay. And now, after 4 years, he's just now starting his first brick and mortar.
And to that point, and you made a point about doing some budgeting and things like that. It's really easy to get excited about baking muffins, but you also have to be able to think through, okay, how many muffins do I have to sell a day just to pay my rent or my mortgage?
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. A lot of people love what they do, so they might make the best cup of coffee. They found this really great blend, they're a great roaster, or they figured out how to brew beer. But just because they figured that out doesn't mean they have a clue how to run a business, because they've never done it. They're great at the trade or the industry they work in, but running a business is its own set of issues. And trying to help, educate yourself along the way and figure out how to do the books or have an advisor, somebody who can help show you things along the way is really crucial. Because if you don't do it's not just doing taxes at the end of the year. If you don't do your books daily or weekly, you have no idea if you're making money today, or if you're not costing your product properly, or if this month's grocery bill for those baked goods was higher. You can't see that if you're not doing those things on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Anything on that?
I find that most innovation derives from 3 different places, right? So using medical, just because we have so much around us here. If you're wow, I can't believe this is the first example that comes to mind. If you're a manufacturer of catheters and you see a need in the market or something that's wrong with the current design, you're steeped in it, you understand it, you fix the problem, right? 2, you're the doctor, you have to utilize this, you see the patient go, ow, there has to be a better way, right? 3rd, you're the patient who says, this is insane, we need to fix this, right? And so you're gonna fall usually in one of those categories. So again, depending on where you fall in that spectrum, you either have to immerse yourself with people who are doing this day in and day out to better understand it, to just saying, hey, I live this life. It could be, so getting back to coffee here, you could say, hey, there's a problem here with our cups. People are just getting burnt left and right. There has to be a better way to do this. Somebody said, let's throw a little extra piece of paper on the outside, and lo and behold, I can tell you that's got a patent on it. Whoever owns it, genius. Just like the same guy who said, hey, my lace is fray at the very end. Well, I make laces, I could say, well, I see a problem here and I fix it. Or I could be the end consumer saying, I'm tired of my laces completely coming undone, I'm gonna put wax on the ends of it. So depending on where you are in the flow of it all, or in the ecosphere of what it is that you're trying to do, you either have to get, very much educated, or, pivot and adjust what you know.
And in terms of turning that into a business, that's a great point, I think, and maybe there's a little more discussion there to kind of help people think through this is, okay, what turns it from an idea into a business? I need to solve somebody's problem, make somebody's life better, make somebody's life easier. I mean, what else, what do you guys think about kind of, so how to think about sort of turning it into a business?
It's interesting. I mean, anytime somebody comes to us with a concept, I mean, our job is to help you, form a business around the concept. It's not just the concept that you're selling, it's, the business process around the concept also. So to go back to your question, what else solving a problem?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, what we're saying is, hey, I have an idea and I think it does one of these things, solve a problem, make somebody's life easier. Here's where I can go to do some research on that. And I guess I'm just maybe expand on what the resources, what a NextTech would do, what are the other parts involved now that we're kind of moving along from the idea. Jill does financing, I mean, there's fundraising, there's all these other things that sort of come out of, okay, we think there's an idea here, we've done some research, maybe what's the next step beyond that?
Yeah, I mean, with NextTech, we're huge on customer discovery. If you think that you've got something that is going to solve someone's problem and you're going to be able to sell it, we want to make sure that other people agree with you. So we go through a very extensive customer discovery process to make sure, if you build it, somebody's going to buy it.
Sometimes it's trial and error. I've kind of done both, a little of what these guys have said. I've had clients who said, I want to make this, I think it's a product that I can sell, how do I know? So they keep their day job and they sell it on Etsy, they sell it on Facebook, and as it builds to the point where they can't do it at home anymore, then they know they have a business and they have to find financing or something else to get that out of their home and really see it move past that beginning stage.
Mm-hmm. Anything on that one?
Yeah, prototyping is really big for me, and that comes in various forms, right? So I'll give you a really good example here. In Toledo, we have a company, I'm sure most of you guys have heard of them. Whenever these things come up, I usually end up dropping their name. One Matters, or Veterans Matter. Veterans Matter is a subpart of One Matters, and it was less than a decade ago where Ken, who's here right now, and two other people were sitting around, and it came up where there were a few homeless veterans that were in the area who needed housing. They said, well, what's the problem? And they discovered that, well, they have these vouchers from the HUD-VASH vouchers, Housing and Urban Development. So in the VA, they put together these vouchers which provide long-term sustainable housing for these homeless veterans. Okay, so what's the problem? Well, they needed a few $100s for a deposit to get in the door. So this had been going on for a while, but nobody stopped to go, oh, that's it? We can do that. And they did. And not just that, it wasn't about, okay, well, we got these guys in the door, what's next? Ken and that team continued to grow and build scalable infrastructure to be able to support that. What started with a few $100s to get people in the door has grown into this massive enterprise now where they have the likes of John Cougar Mellencamp and all these major stars who come down. They were here in Toledo last year to be able to support Tent City. That's a really good example of, I've got an idea, or it's not just identifying a problem but filling a void. And this was actually two birds with one stone. The problem is that you have these people who are homeless, and the void was a few $100s per head.
What is the actual problem that you're solving?
Yep, exactly.
Let's step back a little bit. We've thrown a lot of terms out in the last 20 minutes or so, and I want to make sure that maybe we know exactly what we're talking about. So and you can start wherever you want and end wherever you want, but we've talked about business plans, customer discovery, competition, scalability, pivoting, prototyping, and I'll throw MVP kind of with prototyping on there. I just want to have a discussion about making sure people can really wrap their mind around what are all these things and how they fit in, maybe.
Okay. Well, I'll start with customer discovery. Essentially, customer discovery is, I'll just say how we technically do it. So if you have a concept, that concept is designed or it's been conceived because there's a problem out there you think that this concept's going to fix. When we talk about customer discovery, this is a process where you actually go out into the market that you think your customers will be in, and you talk to them about their problems. You don't talk at all about your concept. You don't tell them, hey, I've come up with this. You actually try to figure out, let's just say you come up with I can't think of anything offhand, but customer discovery is you don't talk about your technology, you just go out to the customer base you think you're going to, your concept's going to reach, and you talk to them about problems that they experience, and you determine whether or not your solution is going to be a fit for their problem. So that's customer discovery.
Yeah, but actually going out there and talking to people.
Yeah, this is actually, you're going out and you're interviewing random people that fit in your customer demographic, or who you believe your customer demographic is. Because you may go out and you may question people who you think are going to be your customers, and based on your questioning, you might find out that your concept doesn't even solve a problem that they have, which is going to require you to pivot. Maybe go to a different set of people that might be a better customer, or you change your concept to solve a problem that you've identified in the people you've interviewed.
Kind of like Joe's Bakery example a little bit. Yeah. Joe, you want to maybe talk a little bit about competition and business plan? And
When you create a business plan, a lot of people will look at a template and get overwhelmed. For one, templates have a tendency to repeat themselves, and they think they have to fill in every single blank on a business plan. A template is generic, and it's meant to be generic. So your business may not fit in that model, and you can just answer the questions that apply. At least from a banking perspective, I can tell you lenders are looking to know who are you and why are you capable of running this business? What experience do you have, kind of like your resume? What experience brings you to the table and says, yes, I am capable of running this business? Find your customer and prove to them who your customer is, how you know it's your customer, and how you plan to market to them so that they know your product exists. And then financial. So if any of these areas you can't do on your own, there are resources. Figuring out your market, like I said before, you could use the Downtown Public Library. They have a lot of resources that could assist you in figuring out who your customer is. If you aren't capable of doing the financials, bringing any of your information to someone like myself at the Small Business Development Center, we can put those financials together for you and help you create the comprehensive business plan you might need so that you can finish the process. For competitors, finding your competitor.
a little bit like customer discovery, right? I mean, it's...
Yeah, it just depends on the market. The more research you do, you'll figure out how many people are in your area that are already doing what you intend to do. Are you solving a problem that no one else has tried to solve, or are there 10 other people doing that already? And how can you do it differently or better?
Yeah. Phil, maybe in your world, talk a little bit about what scalability means and kind of finding out if it makes sense from that perspective in your business.
Sure. So in the sense of, so we can even look at local commerce. So getting back to the bakery here, those businesses are not typically scalable when you consider being a neighborhood bakery. If you say, hey, I want to do donut deliveries nationwide out of a 400 square foot facility, not scalable. It's going to be very difficult to be able to do. So when considering your business and scalability, you really need to take into account, okay, I guess what my short-term objectives are, but what are my long-term objectives, and how does that play into the strategy for growth in the organization? What are the tools in which you're going to need to be able to, going back to Veterans Matter here, they built their own back-end cloud-based infrastructure to be able to work with all these different organizations, bringing them all together in one. It'd be very difficult if you had to pick up the phone every time to go find out if a check needed to go out, if a veteran was being housed. If it requires you to constantly have a body on it, it's probably not scalable. So you need to consider the tools of your trade and the tech that's available to you to minimize the hands-on effect, which also creates fail points in your business.
So growing your business without having to hire another person to create more work for yourself.
Correct.
With scalability. I have one more thing that I want to talk about, but I'd like to open it up for questions first and see if there's things that people want to kind of dig deeper down into, or maybe bring up something that we haven't hit on yet. Is there anybody have a question? Yeah.
More of a curiosity, but when you go out to get a job, find your way around some line of work, are you ever going to be up against some kind of an agreement that they own anything you learned? I mean, some business, maybe not in a bakery, but in some tech world, maybe you're going to run into that.
If you're going,
this is anything I learned here, they own it.
if you do, there should be some type of agreement that you've already signed. So when you start, they would have you sign a non-compete or something else that says you can't take that with you, and you would know in advance. So that may not be the right job for you to take. There are companies that won't make you sign things like that, but you would at least know.
No, that's true. I definitely want to hear from Phil on this, but I think there's probably, it's a great question, but I would say there's probably a separation at least in my mind, of nobody has any right to anything you've learned working in a job. Now, if that crosses into they have proprietary secret information that is, you can't go to work for Coke and take the recipe for Coke and go create schmoke, right? I mean, but that's a little different than gaining experience and kind of separating out your understanding of how that world works in business terms, maybe. Is that?
So first and foremost, understand the laws of the state in which you reside or are working. A lot of states try to impose non-competes, but it's no better than the paper that it's written on. It's completely ridiculous. Two, what you're getting to is, so one is, are you utilizing proprietary technology that you learn to be able to take that and then create something else, or invention agreements, which you will run into if you are building things internally for them. Getting back to the winemaker example, our friends may have learned how to make wine with them. They can't take that exact recipe or style that they made for these particular people utilizing those same grapes. There could be some regional things like, hey, you can't set up shop next door. So a bakery is another one. You can't set up shop within X amount of a radius. They can teach you everything you need to know about baking, full ropes from management to actual hands-on getting the work done. Their non-compete is likely going to be proximity based. So if you travel up to Bedford, your hometown, you could set up shop. There's probably going to be like a 30-mile, I would guess, radius around something like that. Again, from a tech perspective, inventions and whatnot, disclose everything that you bring to the table, and don't steal stuff. I think that should just be like an overall general rule of thumb for life, but just to reiterate here, don't steal stuff.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I heard you talking more in terms of product, when starting business talking about product, but what if you have a service you're providing and you're pioneering kind of an area? I wonder how do you be able to research? I look at other surrounding areas, but there is none here, so I just wonder how do you research something if you're pioneering in the kind of sector?
Is it
in the service area?
Great question.
Is your service you're providing answering one of Adam's questions? So it helps somebody do something they can't do today and something they need?
And it's something someone was willing to pay for.
So just go off that instinct.
Well, I think
Hope is not a strategy. Write that down, everybody, right now. Hope is not a strategy.
Well, I think the first thing, that's great, and you very well may be onto something and potentially something big. The first thing I would say is, okay, initially you've done some work, and I think we found out that this doesn't exist in Toledo maybe. Okay, does it exist in Indianapolis or Chicago or Austin? How are they doing it? Do they do things, is it just in that region? So I guess my challenge would be, let's dive down and a little deeper in that, I'll call it customer discovery / competitor discovery / how are they solving the problem, and really dig into, is it not in Toledo because people in Toledo don't want it, or because it just hasn't come here yet? So I think you might have some good initial answers, but I would challenge you to continue going down that way and expand. And guys, jump in if.
No, that was great. Okay.
Okay, so I guess I would approach this the same way as if anybody here has raised money or has talked to anybody about raising money, a big question that comes up, which you will address in your business plan, you'll address it in your one sheet, you will address it from the start of inception of your business to the day you hopefully exit, which is who are your competitors. And while it's not being done, if you tell a VC who's about to write you a check, there are no competitors in your space, close up your stuff and go home, because they're not going to talk to you.
Yeah.
There's always a competitor. There are parallel industries. There are ways to say, this is how such and such is doing it. This is our differentiators. What's great is that because they're already in market, that's public knowledge, public use. Learn from, even if it's not exactly what you're doing. What we're doing is a really good example with competitive casino games. Like, is anybody doing this? No, not technically, but here are some other areas in which people can come in and try to, invade what it is that you're doing. Because you're just starting, there's always going to be somebody who's in something similar to what you're doing who could potentially swallow you up. And that's either going to be run you out of town, right, because they have more resources available and they could easily pivot or add resources to be able to take you on head on, acqui-hire you, or a full-out acquisition. But the goal is not to, okay, the bigger company swallowed me up. It's how do you affect change perhaps within these larger companies? How do you get people, especially in the service-related industry?
Yeah.
You don't want to just get swallowed up and be like, well, okay, this might be a part of their business model later on. And that happens a lot as a means of stifling competition, of stifling innovation.
Anybody else, sir? Please go ahead.
Question for Joe. Bank loans versus VC, they play complementary roles, but of course with a bank loan we don't usually aggregate, so that's attractive. But how do you make that differentiation? When do you know that to go toward the bank money versus VC?
When do you know when to go to a bank versus a PC?
Yeah, you're talking about maybe when you're raising money, debt versus equity, and
Yeah.
when would you leverage either?
So let's say we have a company and customers and we need some capital to expand our capacity. Would a bank entertain that sort of thing?
A lot.
At what point do you need a venture capitalist to invest money versus a bank loan? This is really
Good question.
A lot of that's going to depend on the industry and what you're doing, because there are some things that you just may not get a bank to invest in.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, I think it's not an either or. I think it's probably a both, and
Be a combination.
right. And that obviously depends a little bit what you're doing, but at least in my world, it's really easy. Are you over collateralized? Do you have physical collateral that a bank can take? If not, a bank's going to tell you no. The bottom line. Now, with that said, the worst thing that they can do is tell you no. So I mean, I wouldn't not necessarily have the conversation, but it's really more about, are you looking to take on debt, a loan that you're going to pay back, or are you looking to give up some ownership, some equity in your company in exchange for money or connections or resources or whatever? Brian, go ahead. I mean, you guys deal with this.
But I was going to say, that's a great point. Are you willing to give up ownership for the money? And if you're not, is your business capable of repaying that loan today? What kind of terms can we negotiate? Can the bank wait 90 days to start paying on it and let you build up some capital first?
And if you don't pay, what's their recourse?
Yes.
And, I mean, that's the number one question they're going to ask.
I have learned that it may sound funny, but the more you keep your bank up to date on your finances, the better off you are. If you are having a bad month, communicating that to the bank is actually better than just not paying it and hiding and pretending that they're gonna go away. 'Cause they won't go away, and they get very frustrated when they can't find out what the problem is. If they can actually see that there are 3 months every year that you are having slow times and you can't make those payments, they are more likely to restructure your loan so you pay a little bit more 9 months out of the year and not those 3 months, if that works better. But banks can work with you in strange ways and really good ways if you communicate with them.
Yeah. Brian, you've worked with a lot of companies and been a part of companies that kind of go, for lack of a better term, 0 to 1 and, 1 to 10. So to back to that question, how do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, from my standpoint, I work with more companies that go the VC route. And that's typically because they have no sales, but they've got a great concept. They've got an outstanding market that they're going to be moving into, and they believe that they're going to be able to generate a tremendous amount of sales and potentially attract larger entities to buy them. So VCs are much more interested in entities like that because they'll hopefully be able to get paid back within, 5 to 7 years, hopefully shorter in most cases. Typically they're putting up larger sums of money as well. So, between in the pre-seed stage around $250,000 to $500,000 to help a concept, scale and get to the next point.
Also, I would say depending on what you're doing, know your market. The city of Toledo has a loan program that actually has a really low interest rate. NextTech has funding, Launchpad has funding. Unfortunately, there are not grants everywhere. Like everybody comes to the SBDC and says, "Can you give us a grant?" They're not as easy to obtain as people think they are. But there's also programs like the Lucas County Port Authority has a Better Buildings program. You can actually redo your roof, your lighting, your HVAC, and get all that rolled into your property tax bill. It's not a loan, so it doesn't show up on your balance sheet, and it goes with the owner of the building. They also have a minority contractor program. So if you own like a dump truck and you can't make payroll, if you have a contract with a company to use your dump truck, they can actually front things like your payroll and your gas until you get paid, because a lot of those contracts are 90 days, 180 days out, and some small companies can't afford that. So there are a lot of resources in the area. If you just know, you can come to any one of us and ask how to help find some of those.
Yeah.
Any other questions? The last thing I want to hit on, and that was actually a good segue, was we've talked a little bit about money here again at the end. Is that the bottom line? Is that the most important thing? I mean, how do I think about, I'm going to invest some of my own money, I'm going to maybe ask my friends and family for money. How do I think about those kind of things as I get started?
I mean,
You've done it.
yeah.
Yes.
So, yes. I guess the best thing you can do is that if you need to be surrounding yourself with people who can help you move your business forward. Money is great. Time is also an asset. I've been fortunate enough, having done this now for 18-ish years, I have a lot of developer friends. I have a lot of designer friends. I have a lot of resources readily available that I can tap because I've consistently paid my bills to them, which have in turn created friendships over the years. That's another thing. Always pay your people, no matter what. So, time is just as usable an asset as money. And if you can align yourself with the right people, you'll get off the ground. If you don't necessarily have a lot of people who can jump right in and help you out, there are a lot of services that are available, again, like Launchpad or various online services to help you prototype things. Money is not the end-all, be-all. You can bootstrap these things very, very cheaply to get you through that threshold to the next level. So it's important, but it's not the most, I don't feel.
Yeah.
Brian?
And I would say before extending a tremendous amount of money on your own, get as many resources involved as possible. Talk through your idea, talk through your concept, talk through your business process, your plan, your market, your customers, because we're all here to help you make the right decisions. I mean, I think Adam and I have worked with many clients where we, have the analogy that entrepreneurship is like walking through a dark forest where tons of things are ready to jump out and bite you. And, like NextTech and SBDC, I mean, we're kind of there to hold your hand and walk you through it and keep you safe. So I believe in an aggressive but cautious approach.
Money may not be the end-all be-all to get you started, but understanding money and your own finances can really drastically affect your company. If you don't truly understand what it costs you to make your product or what your service should sell for, you can hurt yourself at the very beginning. You could overprice yourself, or you could not be charging enough to pay the bills. So just understand your product or service.
And what your money is going to buy for you, maybe. And if you, that's great that you have the ability to invest $5,000 or $10,000, but is that going to actually move the idea forward to a point where you would be able to go to a bank or to, friends and family or whatever? I think we're about ready to wrap it up. Brian, we'll start with Brian and come down. Any just kind of final thoughts to wrap everything up?
No, I think that, entrepreneurship, it's a process. I believe in, being optimistic and aggressive, but also very cautious. My group, we are very conscious of people's time and people's money. We love entrepreneurs, and if they're not going in the right direction, or they're going to be spending money that they really don't need to be spending, we try to direct them in a different way. But we never want people to stop being having entrepreneurial minds. I think that that's really important. And if you have a bad experience, sometimes that can sour you, and you never want to, go after new, invigorating ideas anymore.
Yeah, Jill?
I would just build off something Phil said earlier. I see a lot of people that want to start a business simply because they don't want to work for someone else. If you really think that owning your own business is going to be easier than working for someone else, you fooled yourself. Because the time, energy, and money you're going to invest in this is a lot. I mean, it scared me enough to never want to be my own entrepreneur. But really think through your product, your idea, and make sure this is something you and your family are willing to invest the time and money, because a lot of people don't necessarily see the toll it will take on your family as well. You will be spending a lot of time doing this.
Mm-hmm. Anything?
Amy took my big number. Just to kind of to add to that. So fail fast, absolutely. I find the reason why people either don't get off the ground or quickly pull out is a fear of failure. Be prepared to embrace it. Be prepared to talk up something like it's fantastic and then have to turn around 6 months later and say it didn't pan out. It's not a direct, it's not who you are.
No reflection on you as a person.
It's no reflection on you as a person, exactly. Own failure, and every single time you do, take something from that. Yeah. If you do not learn every time you trip and fall, you're never going to pick your feet up, you're never going to tie your shoes, you're never going to be able to put your hands out and not lead with your face. Right. Take something away every single time, and with that, you'll eventually get to a place where you go, I didn't fall this time, but you're going to find something else that you are going to fail at. Be prepared to fail fast, learn from it, not necessarily pivot, but adapt. Iteration, especially in technology, is a tremendously beautiful thing. You don't have to just put something out there and say, shit, it all fell apart. You fix it, you put it back together. Know your KPIs. Stare at them every single day. If you are in the tech business, or if you are something that has data points that come back to you on a regular basis, have it stare you in the face, because if it's not, you're ignoring it. Like the bank, you have to keep in touch with them, let them know what's going on. Your KPIs are no different. Address them every single day, have a report sent to you. If you have an office, or if you're at home, get a big ass monitor and put it on the wall so you cannot get away from it. The more you stare these things in the face, the more you will address them, and the more you will continue to fail, address, iterate. The best businesses are not necessarily the ones put together by who have the most PhDs. It's the people who can say, crap, that didn't quite work out, let's iterate, and iterate, and iterate, and iterate.
Yeah, and just to kind of sum that up, for every startup that you have heard of that's successful, there's tens of thousands that failed or changed or innovated in some way. So to sort of end on a proactive note, as these guys have said, and Amy spoke to it too, there's a lot of resources here in town to help you. It's NextTech, it's the Launchpad, it's SBDC and the Chamber. There's other entrepreneurs out there that are more than happy to help other people kind of get off the ground. Come talk to us, do the research, and part of this too is to make sure that people know that there are resources out there to help you get going. You got to drive the bus, but there are definitely people here who will help you steer and navigate. So thank you all very, very much. Hope to be able to catch up with some of you guys after, and look forward to seeing you at another Series 24 soon.